$30,000 a year from blogging, written entirely by AI.
Whoa.
That's the bold claim, made by today's subject, AI expert Helena Liu.
It's a bold claim, yeah.
So we thought we would take a deep dive into this. Her video is called How to Make $30,000 a Year Blogging Using AI and Automation.
And you and I both know content is king, right?
Right.
But what happens when the king's got a robotic scribe?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
So we're going to test out some of her AI tricks, see how much magic they can really conjure up.
Yeah.
And we'll start with, I guess, what is the obvious first step, turning Google News into a content goldmine?
Right. So it all starts with RSS feeds.
Okay.
Now, something a lot of our listeners might already use, maybe for podcasts or news websites, right?
Yeah.
But Helena takes this a step further and uses them to track trending topics, right?
Okay.
So she finds these trending topics on Google News
Okay.
and then creates an RSS feed for the search results.
Yeah.
And so every time like a new article on that topic pops up, her system gets pinged, right?
We actually,
It's really quite fascinating.
we tested this out ourselves because we were like, really?
Yeah.
Like, how easy is this really?
Right.
And it's actually surprisingly easy. I mean, it's really not that difficult to set up at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's like having your ear constantly to the ground.
Yeah.
Except that ground is Google's vast news aggregator.
Great.
Right. But the real magic, and she calls this her AI automated blogging system,
Okay.
it uses a combination of tools. One of them you might not expect, make.com.
Okay.
You familiar with that?
So make.com is
For those of you who aren't.
it's almost like
It's like a digital Lego set.
yeah, it's like IFTTT or Zapier.
Exactly.
But for connecting different apps, automating tasks, and basically building your own content creating robot, which is,
Right.
kind of wild, but okay.
And so she uses make.com to take that RSS feed and connect it to, wait for it, more AI.
Of course, more AI. Why not?
Of course. And not just any AI, OpenAI's GPT-4. This is the big guns.
Of course.
This is the language model behind her entire automated blogging machine,
Okay.
right? So first, GPT-4 generates catchy blog post titles based on those incoming news articles, right?
Okay.
From the RSS feed.
Mm.
And her big thing is crafting very specific prompts, okay?
Okay.
To tell the AI exactly what kind of title she wants.
Okay.
It's like giving a creative brief to a freelance writer.
Right.
But your writer happens to be a language model that can crank out titles in milliseconds.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And that's not all. It doesn't stop there. Because we were talking about AI image generators, right? She takes it to a whole nother level. She's using GPT-4 to actually write the prompts for DALL-E 3,
Right.
which is, again, OpenAI's image generation tool.
So it's AI working with AI to create content.
Yes.
Which is both impressive and a little bit unnerving at the same time.
Yeah, it's a little Black Mirror-esque, but okay.
It is. It is.
So it crafts the perfect image prompt based on the news article, the title. Then DALL-E 3 is like, okay, here's your image, custom created for your blog post. So we got that, we got that.
Yeah.
What about the actual blog post?
Yeah. You guessed it. Back to GPT-4.
Of course.
Of course.
So
she feeds it the original news article URL. She gives it the AI-generated title, and then a set of very detailed instructions about the style, tone, length of the post she wants. She says that being super specific here is really key to getting, like, really high-quality output.
yeah, I mean, it's like anything. You've got to, if you're like, think about if you were giving this to like a freelance writer.
Right, of course.
You would give them all the information.
It's like baking a cake.
Yeah.
You need the right ingredients and the right recipe to get a delicious result.
Right. So it's all about crafting that perfect GPT-4 prompt. But here's where things get really interesting, because remember, she's aiming for $30,000 a year from all this. So let's dive into the monetization strategies. How is she using this AI-generated content to get that cold, hard cash? Okay, so we've got our AI-powered content machine, like spitting out blog posts left and right.
Right.
But how do you actually monetize that?
Yeah.
How do you turn those zeros and ones into dollar signs? That's where things, I think, get really interesting because, anyone who spent like 5 minutes on the internet has seen those like Google AdSense banners just like plastered everywhere.
Exactly.
So is that still a viable strategy?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, Helena talks about both CPC and CPM ads, right? Cost per click, cost per 1,000 impressions, whatever.
Right.
But she doesn't really address the fact that, like, ad fatigue is a real thing.
Right. And ad blockers.
People are using ad blockers.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as just like driving traffic to your blog and then boom, you're making money.
Right.
It's more complicated than that.
So maybe passive income from ads, maybe not so much, or at least not as easy as it used to be.
Right.
So what's her next strategy?
Monthly sponsorships.
Okay.
So this is where you're partnering directly with businesses
Okay.
that are relevant to your blog's niche
Okay.
and giving them dedicated ad space.
Okay.
So think like banner ads on your site, maybe even sponsored blog posts
Okay.
for like a fixed monthly fee.
Okay. So you're basically, instead of relying on those like tiny little CPC ads, you're going straight to the source and saying like, hey, I've got this audience. You want to reach them.
Exactly. And hopefully you can command a premium for that, right?
Right.
Because you're offering a more engaged audience.
Right. It's not just like random people clicking on whatever.
It's
You're
really-
saying like these are people who are actually interested in this very specific thing,
Right.
which I guess speaks to her whole thing about like finding a niche, right?
Right.
Like the
Yeah.
more specific, the
Yeah.
better.
Niche specificity is key, she
Yeah.
says. Because the more targeted your audience is, the more appealing you are to potential sponsors.
Right. Because they can say like, okay, if you're writing about like, I don't know, underwater basket weaving for left-handed hedge fund managers,
Right.
then we know exactly who your audience is.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you might be surprised who's out there willing to sponsor that kind of content.
Right. Right.
But moving on, her third strategy takes us into the world of affiliate marketing.
Okay. Yeah. This is a big one.
This is a popular one.
Yeah.
So this is where you're recommending products or services that are relevant to your blog's content,
Right.
and you earn a commission on any sales that are made through your unique affiliate link.
Right. So it's like the whole, like, if you like it, buy it through my link kind of thing. Which,
Okay.
I've seen that everywhere too.
It's everywhere.
But I do wonder, like, how effective is that if people know that your content is AI generated?
That's a good question.
Right. Because it's like you're kind of relying on that trust factor.
Right. And she does touch on this, the importance of transparency.
Okay.
She says you've got to be upfront with your audience about using AI.
Okay.
But she doesn't really get into the specifics of like how that might actually impact your affiliate marketing efforts.
Right.
So that's, a bit of a gray area.
Yeah. Definitely something to think about.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got ads, we've got sponsorships, we've got affiliate marketing.
Right.
What's the fourth one?
The fourth one is creating and selling your own digital products.
Okay. Right. So you're creating like ebooks and courses and things like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So she suggests using AI, of course, to help you create these things.
Of course.
Right. Like imagine using GPT-4 to help you outline an entire ebook or even generate like initial drafts of the content.
Right?
It's pretty amazing.
That's wild. So you're like really working smarter, not harder in that sense.
Ah.
But I do have to imagine, even with AI assistance, like creating a high quality digital product, it's still a lot of work.
It is. It is.
Like, is that really a viable option for someone who's looking for like a quick and easy 30 grand?
Right. Well, she doesn't sugarcoat it.
Okay.
She's very clear that it takes time, it takes effort,
Okay.
but the potential rewards are there, right?
Right.
If you can create something that's truly valuable to your audience and you can reach those people, then, sky's the limit.
Okay. So it's not just about like churning out generic ebooks and hoping for the best.
Right.
You really do have to kind of bring something unique to the table.
Exactly.
Okay.
You've got to find your niche.
Right.
And
Right.
you've got to create something that's high quality and valuable.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the how, right?
Right.
Like how she's doing all of this.
Right.
But I think it's also worth talking about the why a little bit.
Okay.
Like, what are the ethical implications here of using AI to generate content for profit?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Right. Because it's one thing to use it for, like, your own personal blog, right?
Right.
But when you start, like, taking on paid writing gigs, for example,
Right.
and passing off AI-generated content as your own work.
Right. That's where things get a little murky.
Yeah.
I mean, ethically, professionally, it's a recipe for disaster. Right.
Right. Because imagine, like, you build up this whole reputation as, like, this amazing writer.
Right.
And then it comes out that you've been using an AI this whole time.
Right. Exactly.
Like, that's not going to end well.
No, not at all.
So I think transparency is key here, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're using AI to help you with your content creation, just be upfront about it.
Right.
Let your audience decide.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, it's about trust, right?
It is. It is.
And authenticity.
Absolutely.
Like, in this digital world that's becoming increasingly kind of synthetic and artificial,
Right.
I think it's more important than ever to be real with your audience.
I agree. I agree.
And, speaking of authenticity, I think there's one other thing that we should touch on,
Okay.
which is that in her video, she suggests using this AI system not just for your own blog, but also to generate content for other publications,
Right,
like submitting articles to websites and things like that.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, because again, like using it for your own personal blog, that's one thing.
Right.
But when you're like trying to get paid for it and you're basically passing off this AI generated content as your own original work,
Right. You're essentially plagiarizing.
it gets legally murky
Exactly.
very quickly.
Yeah, not to mention the potential for like copyright infringement and all sorts of other legal issues.
Right. So it's best to just steer clear of that altogether, I think.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have.
We've talked about the technical side of things, the ethical considerations, the monetization strategies, the whole 9 yards.
The whole shebang.
So for our listeners who are kind of just tuning in now, what would you say is the key takeaway here?
I think the main thing is AI is a powerful tool.
Yes.
It can be incredibly useful for content creation,
Right.
but it's not a magic bullet.
Right.
It's not going to do all the work for you.
Right.
You still need to be creative, you still need to be engaged, and you definitely need to be ethical in how you're using it.
Right. So use it responsibly.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to experiment with it, but also be mindful of the potential pitfalls.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I think we should probably wrap things up there.
Sounds good.
But as always, it's been a pleasure picking your brain.
Likewise. Always a good time.
And for our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll catch you next time.